and welcome along to the Panto podcast. This week my guest is the hilarious and very fast talking Kev Orkian. He tells me what happens when you have a well-educated child up for the song sheet, his academy to teach the noble art of pantomime to the next generation, and what it's like to perform pantomime to an international audience. So please, sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. My guest for today's Panto podcast is Kev Orkian. Hello, Kev.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Do you know what? Knackered. I'll be honest with you. Ever since Panto finished in December with Diversity in Southend, it's been non-stop. I've had a week of holidays with the family, but I've got to be honest. I was working on the cruise when I was with them as well. So I ended up doing 2 shows on there as well. So it's just been manic, and now straight into the office again.
Well, I'm in the office and I can see nothing but show posters everywhere. It seems like you're quite the workaholic.
That's just my ego trip. I have to be honest, because when I look up, it always keeps me positive, knowing that I've been in all these shows, and I'm humble enough to go, yeah, let's do more, and let's just produce as much as we can. I'm nowhere near where I think I need to be in my career or my life. So these shows are just some of the tasters really on what I am and able and capable of doing, really.
So when you were little then, what was your sort of first experience of theatre?
Hayden, I've never been tall. I've never been big. I've always been little. So when I was really little, I only went to one pantomime. The school only took us to Mother Goose once, and I went and saw this goose lay a golden egg. I went home and told my mother, and she went, "This doesn't happen for real, my darling. Don't believe what you see." And she ruined the entire experience for me, because my mum comes from Armenia. They don't do pantomime. They don't even know what it is. So I said, "But this goose laid this golden egg." "Nothing, rubbish. Come on, go do homework." So that was literally it. So for me, it was my first experience of theatre, pantomime, was that. And I think I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. That was my first time. And then I never went again until I started performing in the West End, and I got approached by Kudos and John Conway and Nick Thomas, who came up and went, "Look, we'd like to offer you pantomime. Are you interested?" I said, "Where?" And no, I didn't even say where. I said, "Yes, please," first of all. And then I said, "Where's that?" And, I would have gone all the way to Afghanistan for Panto, to be fair. I was so desperate to do it. And they put me with Sam and Linda, as in Sam Kane, Linda Lasardi, Lionel Blair, Roger Kitter, into Nottingham's pantomime of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, with Big Mick as the head dwarf. Oh. And that was my first time. And I was thrown in the deep end, and I loved every moment of it. One of my favourite pantos of all time, that was.
So where did the performing start for you?
When I was exactly 4 years old, I went to an Armenian event that my mum and dad it was a very church-orientated event, and they turned up to the event, and what they do is, the Armenians, they tend to have classical pianists, violinists, this, that, whatever. They all turn up, they do a performance, and then what happened was, as they were watching it, I was sitting with them. I was an only child at that point, so I was only 4. And my mum was pregnant with my sister at the time. And apparently, according to my mum and a few people who I still know after 40 plus years, said, apparently I stood on my chair and I shouted at the top of my voice, "I've got a poem and I'd like to tell everyone." And the gentleman who was on stage happened to be a priest of the church that was doing a sermon at the time, in amongst this event, and he stopped it. He stopped the prayer and he said, "Well, come up here then." So my mum went, "Oh my God, we're going to hell. We're going to hell." So I walked on. So I walked onto the stage. I walked up to him. He picks me up, puts me on this grand piano. He goes, "Go on then," and he gives me the mic. And I did this very nice poem, which is very similar to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But it's I did a poem version of it and whatever, and it's about the moon and this and that, whatever. And I got a massive round of applause. So he was wonderful. He said, "That's wonderful." So he took the microphone, and I wouldn't give it back. I went, no. I said, "I've got another one." And my mum at this point is literally going, "Come here," like this. But I was like, no. I want to do another one. So he said, "Oh, well, go on then." So then we have a patriotic poem about our, just like, if it was William the Conqueror or something like that. We've got a patriotic version of our king. And I said, I want to. And he said, well, go on then. And I did. And I did this patriotic poem because I knew it. And at that point, basically 1,000 people stood on their feet and gave me a standing ovation. So I stood up, I took a bow, as you do at a 4-year-old, and he put me down on the floor, and I just gave him the microphone back, and I walked back and sat next to my mum. And my mum and dad, my mum turned around to my dad, apparently, according to a friend who's still with us today, turned around to her, and my mum went, well, that's what he's going to do for the rest of his life then, isn't it? That is right. And it has been. I've never, ever done an office job. I mean, I know I sit here and do it, but I don't see this as an office job. I see this as nurturing other talent, producing other shows, and being in the entertainment business. So I've never, ever done a 9-to-5 job in my life. This is all I've ever done.
So after that performance then, were you sort of still...
No, after that performance, no. To be honest with you, my mum put me into the Armenian dance group, the Russian dances, you know, all the all that business. So I did all that, and I did that for 7 years, but I was always a pianist. And from the age of 3.5, all I ever did was learn the piano. It was my mum's dream that I was living. So when I got to 15, I completed all my grades, did everything. I was a concert pianist by the time I was 16. And I was touring around doing piano concerts, you know, entertaining people, doing concerts and around this and whatever. But there was not much money in it for me at the time. And I then decided I wanted to go into the West End. So I started auditioning, and I did Me and My Girl. Straight after that, I did Fame, and then the doors opened for Grease, Buddy Holly, Boogie Nights, Happy Days, and everything you see on the walls.
Do you find yourself, and the comparison, I know you've played him on stage before, and I've seen the poster as well, but the whole Dudley Moore injecting comedy and with the piano playing and...
I'll be honest with you, when I played The Life of Dudley Moore in London, I've done it twice now, and it's called The Afterlife of Cook and Moore. When I got the script, and the two gentlemen, Jonathan Hansler and Clive Greenwood, who originally wrote the story, they gave me the script, and I was in The Infidel at the time for David Baddiel in London. And they came up and went, we think you'd be great as Dudley Moore. I said, all right, so can you do the accent and this and that? Well, and at the time, I didn't really know Dudley Moore, in the sense that I did know him, and I was a very big fan of his, but I hadn't really listened to him, if you understand. I'd always watched his shows, but I hadn't listened to, you know, the way he, you know, sometimes he talks and like the things he brings out, you know, when he's doing his characters and things like that. And I was like sitting there going, well, I need to learn this properly because I don't know what they want from me. And then, of course, you know, doing like Pete and Dad and, well, I don't know what he's talking about really, you know, and all that business. And I was trying to learn all the accent. So I sat and watched him. And as I watched him, I stopped laughing, I'll be honest. And I started getting... I felt sad for him, if I have to be honest, because I saw some of the stuff he was doing. And after reading up on him and reading up on his relationship with Peter Cook, I got more and more worried about playing the part, I'll be honest, because the character was so deep. And then when I got the script, I was rehearsing in another office, and I went home and I was taking that character home. I wasn't letting him go for some reason. And for a couple of days, I was being very rude to not only my wife, but also to my children. And I wasn't being abusive to them. I was just saying rude words like, you know, effing and blinding, which I always remember not to do in front of my children. But I was doing it naturally. And I looked at my wife and I went, it's not me, it's the character. And I said, I'm not letting it go. So if it's okay with you, would you take the children and would you go up and stay at your mum and dad's for 4 or 5 days while I get this character in my head and then put him to rest? And that's exactly what she did. She went up north, stayed with her parents for a week actually, because she took advantage, and I spent a week in the house going through the character, and I realised terribly how dark and abusive and how horrible his life was away from camera, because by the time I got into the character, when I played the character, the gentleman who wrote Beyond the Fridge in Edinburgh Fringe Festival came and saw the show, and he was in his 80s at that point, and we did the show and whatever, and right at the end, I don't play the piano throughout the whole show, but right at the end I stare at the piano because I finally get one, and I put my fingers on it, and then I play What's the Arthur's theme? And as I was playing it, Arthur's theme, I heard him begin to cry. So I heard him crying. So at the end of the show, he came up to me and I said, "Did you enjoy it?" He said, "When I shut my eyes," he said, "all I could hear was Dudley Moore." He said, and it didn't matter who was there doing it. He said he was definitely channeling himself through you. And it was the loveliest compliment I got. And we won some awards and some reviews, but it was a nice thing to have played. So yes, I definitely see myself in a way Dudley Moore, but fortunately I'm a much more positive person than he was.
When did you start bringing the comedy into your performing then?
I never not did. Comedy's always been the first thing that was in my life. My parents are very funny people. My mum particularly and my dad, the relationship they had together was very comedic. It was very, very funny. And most of those old sitcoms that we all used to sit down and watch, where the husband and wife relationship is always argumentative, that is my mum and dad to a T. And I learnt from them that, you know, comedy timing I had, which I didn't realise I had, because I was never allowed to kind of pursue that side of my career. But I had, you know, comedy timing for me always came through the piano. It came through playing a little bit of something and then looking at the audience going and carrying on again. And people enjoyed that. So I enjoyed doing that. And I thought there's something here. So that's why I carried on elevating the piano. And to be honest with you, the piano started on its own. The comedy started on its own. And I think in 1997 or 8, I think it was, I got the chance, if I look on the posters actually, there you go, it was the one I was talking to you about, the John Inman and Billy Pearce and the Nolan sisters, the Comedy Bonanza. That was in the Millennium. There you go, that was in the Millennium. So 1999, I was asked by John Conway if I would like to take over Bobby Crush's position in that show, because Bobby Crush, God bless him, was busy doing other things and didn't really want to do the show. So John said, "Would you like to do it?" And I said, "Yeah." So what do I have to do? He said, 15 minutes to stand up. And I'll be honest with you, that was like hell for me, because I had no jokes or nothing. So Billy Pearce, John Inman, and Jimmy Cricket took me under their wing, and Jimmy gave me a couple of jokes, Billy gave me a couple of jokes, John Inman gave me a few ideas and routines, John Conway came in with the piano and gave me some ideas, and the rest is history. And that was when the piano and the comedy married.
That's wonderful. And then the Panto, then the first Panto, you
Yes.
said, when it was with Sam Cane, Linda Lusardi.
Correct, with Lionel Blair and Roger Kitter, who obviously sadly passed away.
You were lead comic to be thrown into that position?
Yeah, absolutely. My mentor is John Conway, who was one half of Kudos with Nick Thomas. And John Conway, the first time he saw me, he just said, "I think you've got something." And the first show I did for him was Happy Days. And I went for the audition for Happy Days, and he just looked at me and he said, "You're perfect." He said, "In every way, you've got the timing, you've got this and that." But he said, "I don't think you know you've got it." He said, "I think you're just raw and you don't realise you've got it." And he said, "I want to nurture that." So he took me under his wing, and I did Happy Days first. And as soon as I finished Happy Days, he then put me into the pantomime. He said, "Kev will be all right." So I went into the Happy Days, and I believe the director was Lionel Blair. And Lionel Blair took me under his wing, and we did, you know, a few ideas on comedy in this, but literally I stuck to the script. And I just know, I know this is arrogant probably to say, but I know how to make a script funny. And whether that's just visual, whether that's through silence, whether that's through a timing, or whether that's through movement, I find those areas in the script and I do them. And then what happens is, once I get used to the actors I'm working with and I trust them implicitly, then I start adding in ideas and visuals and facials and this and that, which help. So for me, it's always about the comedy jumping out of the book and me grabbing it and going, "Yeah, I'll do that," or "I'll do this." But John Conway gave me a lot of ideas, and so did Roger Kitter, because Roger Kitter was in the pantomime with me. And he gave me, actually, I'll tell you this, he gave me a great line in Happy Days. We were sitting on the sofa together. He was, he would have been Richie's dad, Mr. Cunningham. And I was Ralph Malph, the redhead. And don't even go there. The amount of times they bleached my hair. That's why I'm going half bald now. But we were on the stage together, and we were on set, and we've got 1,500 people watching us in one of the venues in around the UK. And the jokes were, hey, Mr. Cunningham, I've got a joke. I got to tell you this joke. He said, oh, what's the joke? I said, what do you call a fish with no eyes? He said, what? And I went, shh. And he looks at me, right? And he doesn't laugh, right? He doesn't laugh. Then I go, hey, I got another one. And Ralph Mouth realizes he didn't find that very funny. And I go, well, what do you call a pig with 3 eyes? Pig. And he looks at me again, and he doesn't smile. And I'm like, oh, man. Okay. What do toilet seats and anniversaries have in common? He said, I don't know. What do toilet seats and anniversaries have in common? Men miss both. Right? And it gets a big laugh, but the audience laugh at that as well. And then what I did was I go, and all this movement that I would do. And one night, God bless him, he turned around, he said to me, I've got a great idea for you. I said, go on. I said, do the 3 jokes again. He said, but reverse it. He said, do the toilet one first, then the fish, and then the pig. No, the pig and then the fish. So I said, right, really? He said, do that, and don't move once. Don't move. And I went, all right. So I reversed it. I said, what did toilets men miss both? All the ladies started to laugh. And I went, what do you call a pig with 3 eyes? Pig. And everyone, more laughter. And then I didn't move. And I went, anyway, what do you call a fish with no eyes? And I just paused after that, and I did what he told me. And it got a round of an ovation. And I stood there and went, I had no idea that could happen that way round. And I learnt so much from him and John Conway and everyone I ever worked with. And I thought, the more I sponge all this in, the better I'm going to become. And that's literally what's happened. Over the years, I've been blessed to work with everyone that's funny. So everyone from Bradley Walsh through to Joe Pasquale, Jimmy Cricket, Jim Davidson, Bobby Davro, all the big names that were the big stars of the 1990s. And then I started working on the comedy circuit, and I worked with all them, and you sponge all the comedy. And as you sponge, you become not untouchable, but you become so experienced in what people are going to find funny. And that's what I did. Sorry, I keep talking too much, don't I?
You're fine, it's your podcast.
Bless you. Sorry, people listening.
I take it the nerves have never been a problem for you.
Not in a million years. And this is something that I'm now becoming, believe it or not, Hayden, this week alone, this has become an issue for me. I produced with John Conway. Let me rephrase that. We didn't produce. John Conway produced it. We supplied all the equipment through one of my companies that I own, the AV and PA for Jason Manford's gig on Monday night in the Cambridge Theatre. It was a private event, but we did all the work. And just before Jason Manford was walking on stage, he was so nervous. He looked white. He looked like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Yet he's been on TV for 10 years, a decade, and he's been doing loads and loads of stand-up. But he got nervous. And I looked at that, and rather than thinking, oh, you plonker, I actually envied it because I don't get nervous, ever. I'm more comfortable on stage than I am off stage. So when I'm off stage, I get nervous or anxious. I don't really get nervous, but I get anxious about talking about ideas, this, that, whatever. I sometimes suffer with anxiety when it comes to situations like that. But when I'm on stage, oh, good God, I'm at home. So I don't get nervous. So when I see people around me getting nervous, in a way, I feel sorry for them. But now, recently, I've started being envious of them because I'm like, I don't get nervous. Is that a detriment to me, or is that a talent? I don't know. So I've always questioned that. It's become a little bit of a nightmare for me when you hear the likes of Frankie Howard and all them lot puking in a bucket before they walk on stage. And I can't even contemplate. Why would you puke? I mean, you're a great performer. Why would you worry about getting on stage? But then I've recently figured out. My wife's told me that she said part of your IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is of the anxiety you suffer after you've finished your show, because I suffer from wondering what people thought of my show. So I don't suffer going on stage, but I worry about what people thought after my show. So I suffer a little bit of anxiety and go, oh, what? And it hits the old stomach cramps and whatever, and I get a bit worried. But that's how it's hit me over the years. Being the age I am now, I think it catches up with you.
Is it quite the come down then, to go from literally people laughing, clapping, standing ovation like it was when you were 4 years old?
Yeah, it is a come down. I couldn't control it when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I'd get in my car and I'd bawl my eyes out for an hour. I'd be crying because I'd be really low. And then I'd be really hyperactive the following day, knowing I've got another comedy show. And I'd walk on stage, I'd do my thing, I'd walk off stage, everyone would come, love you and adore you, and then I'd walk off back to being sad and being worried again and crying in the car on the way home. And it took me some time to control those emotions. I suppose in a way I still suffer from it time to time, particularly if I've done a very big gig and I walk off stage and it's just insanely, the feedback is so positive. And what happens is I tend to run away from it now. So people come up to me, can we have a photograph, this, that, whatever. And I do all that and I sign autographs. But when I'm finished, I try and escape as quick as I can because I know that the come down is not going to be a nice, pleasant experience for me. So I tend to go, if I'm doing a stand-up comedy show, I tend to get in my car quickly. If I'm on a ship entertaining people, then I tend to, which is very difficult because you got people around you all the time. And sometimes they even come to your cabin knocking on your door, you were great. Yeah, thank you, So you get that kind of thing. So I try and escape it. And I don't want to show my sadness, or I don't want to give away the Kev Orkian they didn't see. So that's what I do.
Is the Kev Orkian that the audience see then a bit of an act?
No, it's him. It's him all the time. So when I go home, I'm that person, but I'm also daddy and I'm also hubby. So I'm that person and I go home and I do. But once in a while, if the sugar levels have gone down dramatically and whatever, I tend to keep quiet and I tend to put myself away. Maybe I'll go up to bed very early, 8 o'clock in the evening, and I'll sit in bed and watch a show or something, or I'll watch TV or do something on my laptop, because I know there's times when I do feel upset and there's times when I feel absolutely hyperactive. But I would say 90% of the time now, 90%, I'm happy and I'm happy-go-lucky and I smile and I cheer coming in. I'm really positive. I've surrounded myself with really nice people. So I'm constantly trying to do great things in this world. And I want to leave a legacy behind, not just with the shows I do, but with the nurturing that I do for the future as well in this business. That's what keeps me really happy and entertained, I think.
When did you actually start then the Pantomime Academy? And actually, let's tell listeners what the Pantomime Academy actually is.
The British Pantomime Academy started last year. The reason I started it was because it goes back mentally. It goes back to the idea that the likes of Bradley Walsh's, Bobby Davros, Brian Connolly's, they had working men's clubs that they could go to where they could try their act out. They could go to Havens, Butlins, places like that, and Park Deans and whatever, and try their act out and to see how to nurture their comedy. And that's what it was all about. We don't have that anymore. We don't have those working men's clubs anymore. We do have your Havens, but we don't have that, what I would call the necessity to think on your feet. Because most of the time, they bring in production shows. They don't really bring in that many stand-up comedy shows anymore. The stand-up comedy shows are predominantly your comedy stores and jonglers, which doesn't exist anymore now, and other comedy clubs like that. So I decided we needed somewhere to nurture the talent of the future, because realistically speaking, the likes of Matt Slack, Tucker, myself, Lloyd Hollett, and a number of other comics like Andy Ford, people like that, Andy Collins, all these guys are the last of the comics that are in pantomime. They're the last of it, because they were the guys that did the Haven holiday parks, the Butlins, the Park Dean holiday parks, and they were the guys that were the stand-ups that were not only variety but also stand-up comedy. And unlike the comics that are in that circuit of jonglers and comedy store, they're not from a variety background, they're from a stand-up background. And when you're in a pantomime, you have to perform as a showman, okay? You don't have to have the shiny black shoes on, but you have to be a showman. You have to be variety. You have to talk to the audience. You have to get them going. But you have to be an actor. You've got to be able to, liaise with the Wicked Queen, be in love with the Cinderella, and this, that, whatever. But then you've got to be able to sing. Now we've got to be able to do a number. Oh, hold on a minute. We've got to be able to dance. What's happening with the dancing? So a lot of these comics don't know how to do that. A lot of comics, stand-up comics, are comics, and they're great comics, but they don't have a variety background. Or, a lot of them don't play musical instruments and whatnot. So the idea was that I set up the British Pantomime Academy that nurtures the future of upcoming talent. So whether that's comedians from the comedy circuit who come and join and do the week's course and learn how to be a more of a pantomime actor and comic, or whether you've got character actors who want to do ugly, dames, baddies, goodies, fairies, wicked queens, Abanazas. And that's why I set up the British Pantomime Company, to nurture not just adults, but to also keep the excitement for the children. So at the moment, we haven't really come to a decision how old we're going to start with, but I think we're going to start with probably about 10-year-olds through to 15 or 16-year-olds that want to do the British Pantomime Academy, which basically means they sign up, and it's a course they do either as a daily course or they do a week's course where they come along into a venue and they do a massive amount of craftsmanship, from tradition, routines, comedy, character work, wig, how to do your wigs, how to do your makeup, choreography, and the whole insight into British pantomime, which is what it's all about. And to nurture it so that the children of the future go, well, I've done this, and now I can get into an adult pantomime, and that's what it's all about.
What was the first pantomime then you'd say you loved?
The greatest pantomime that had magic for me, pure magic, and I'll tell you, instantly the image comes into my head, is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When the lights go down, a little bit of a haze kicks in, and the dwarfs with their little lamps walk over the bridge. And that to me was one of the most magical moments in any pantomime. The second most magical moment that I would say I loved and adore, and every time I see it, and I think it's getting better, is Cinderella, when she does the change from being into rags into riches. And the one that I did with Denise Pearson from Five Star, when I did pantomime with her, she sang a song which was the end of Act 1 song, and the princess was changing into her outfit, and that would have been Anna Williamson, who currently is the godparent to my children, and she was changing into it, and Denise Pearson was singing the song on what it is to dream and to be magical. And I'll tell you what, I watched that every single night for 60 odd shows, and it brought a tear to my eye every night, and that was one of the most magical things I've ever seen on stage. So they're the two things that I would always love to see in pantomime.
What was the thing, though, that actually sparked your interest in pantomime? I know you said about the golden goose being laid.
John Conway. Actually, it was him who said to me, you've got to do pantomime because it's a form of theatre that's probably the most hardest genre. It's the greatest reward when you see children's faces, but it's a great platform for your talent. And that's why I think I went in there unknown, and I came out of there literally falling in love with it, wanting to do it every year. And I have, I think, and I've worldwide as well. So I've done quite a few.
I was going to just go into that, actually. I was going to say you've conquered pantomime in the UK.
I wouldn't say conquered, but I certainly, I've been doing a few.
Comic. You don't be so modest.
Bless you. Yeah, no, I've been very lucky.
You've conquered UK. What's it like then, going over to Australia, being an ambassador of pantomime?
Pantomime in Australia was relatively new 5 years ago. It was the first time Bonnie Lithgow took a pantomime out there, and I didn't do it. She got an Australian comic to do it. And very quickly, the following year, she said, look, will you come and do it for me? Yeah, absolutely. So I did 4 years back-to-back in Australia. Oh, no, so, excuse me, she's been doing it for 6 years. So I went out there, and I did the pantomime, and it went down a treat. And the only thing that's different from the British pantomimes is the fact that you've got to explain to the audience why they're booing, why they're cheering, and when they can clap and hiss, because they don't know, because they don't realise what pantomime's about there. So as soon as I walk on stage, hello boys and girls, how you getting on? Right, you going to be my friends? Yeah! Amazing. Now listen, when the baddie comes out, you got to boo, yeah? Boo. All right, everyone, let's have a practice. 1, 2, 3. Boo. Yeah, and every time a goodie comes out, you got to cheer. Give us a cheer. Yay! Fantastic. Well, that's it. You've learned how to do pantomime. Bye. And then walk off stage.
That's it.
And that's it. So I've done it, and I've met some incredibly wonderful people, massive celebrities who came to see it. I'm the first person. I'm going to rub my ego. Nicole Kidman came to see the show with her other half. I forget his name. What's his name?
I don't know.
I forgot. He's the singer. He's the massive singer. Anyway. And Nicole Kidman came and we were doing Aladdin, and I was doing the police chase scene, going into the audience, going around, blah blah blah. And what I do is I high five it's like there's 2 tiers, and the second tier you can actually high five everyone and then run back onto the stage. And as I'm high fiving everyone, I'm going do, 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 do. I high five this blonde, really really beautiful lady, and I go dun, dun, and as I went past, I went, hold on a minute. I know that woman. Who's that? So then I turned back. I thought, forget it. I'll go the other way and high five her again. So I went past and I high fived her again, and it was Nicole Kidman. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so I walked on stage. Anyway, I did the end of the show. And then 4 children got up, because I always do the song sheet. And 2 of them were hers. 2 of the kids were hers. And I got her daughter to sing a song on stage. And she came back afterwards, and her compliments were just out of this world. And she said Kev Orkian is the first person to basically put my daughter on stage and give her an opportunity. So she said, I'd like to thank him. So Bonnie Lithgow told me that, and I didn't get to meet her, unfortunately, but I was over the moon with that. So, and she's been back to support it many times. So yeah, I think pantomime in Australia is thriving, as it is in America. So I think South Africa wants to take it on. Dubai wants to take it on. There's a lot of countries wanting to take it on. So let's just see where... I mean, Panto, I don't think we've even tapped into it after 100 years. There's so many countries just want to go, wow, this is amazing. Let's have it.
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. It's the best thing in the world.
What about your children then? Do they go and see Daddy perform?
To be honest with you, I wish they didn't. Because... no, I wish they didn't, right? Because 3 years in a row, those little... have seriously upstaged me on stage. And last year they were great. The year before, I can't tell you how incredibly brilliant they were. Luke is a natural performer. I don't know where he gets it from, but he's a natural performer, right? And he walked on stage, and I said to them, I briefed them before they walked on, right? I said, boys, whatever you do, don't tell anyone that I'm your dad. I said, why, Daddy? I said, because I want to do a joke. And I want to do it, and blah, blah, blah. So just pretend we've never met. Okay, no worries. So they walk on stage. Jake is me in the sense that he looks like me and whatever, and he's not a performer. Luke's got that bit from me, but Jake's... So I walk on stage and I went, hello. I said, what's your name? And he went, Jake. I said, how old are you, Jake? He said, I'm 5. And he's doing it all categorically because he's been, he's got it in his head. He's not going to say anything. And I said, did you enjoy the show? Yes, I did. And who was your favourite? You were. Thank you very much. And what would you like for Christmas? I'd like Thomas the Tank Engine. Really? Okay. So he said, well, you said you'd get it. Now, at that point, fortunately, right, not a lot of people clicked onto the fact that it was my son. Then I moved over to Luke. This is where hell broke loose. I went, hello, what's your name? Luke. And how old are you? Well, I'm the same age as him, Daddy. We're both the same age because we're your children. And it brought the house down. And he went, you're so stupid. And that was it. I mean, they brought the house down. It was so funny. So for 3 years, they've been coming to pantomime and they've absolutely loved it. They've adored it. And last year, the year just gone, they didn't even comprehend I was in the show. It was all about Ashley and Banjo and Perry Kylie. Perry has glasses like me, Daddy. He's like me. He's blind. No, he's not blind, son. But he's yeah. But I'm not blind. But he looks like me. But no, he doesn't look like you. Do you know what? Let's just leave it there. Leave it there. So, but it's all. So they love Panto. They're absolutely.
How do then young comics deal with a song sheet?
With great difficulty, because in the olden days, you could get 4 children up on stage and it was just about taking the mickey out of them because children didn't answer back. So 10 years ago, children would sit there and you'd go, hello, little man, what's your name? My name's John. And what are you going to get for Christmas? I'm going to get a bike. You're not. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. I know what you're getting. It's not nowhere near. It's probably just an orange. And they'd do all this kind of insulting and they'd tease and they say, who dressed you today? Mummy dressed me. Well, I can tell, yeah. And all that. And you get all that. You do those jokes these days, the child's going to not only come back, but probably with a wittier comment than you did. Okay? So I've had, well, I'll tell you the best one I ever had. And I think comics, this is where comics will struggle, because comics that do the comedy circuit don't deal with children. So the best one I ever had was Wimbledon. No, it wasn't. It was Richmond Theatre. And very posh. And the child walked on stage with a tie, a shirt and a waistcoat, shiny shoes and checkered trousers. Right? So he was standing there. And he gets on. And all 4 children there. And he's the last one. And I said, we're going to do Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Can you think of an animal? Think of an animal, but it has to be a weird animal. Something really weird, like something that you'd never see on a... Okay, whatever. So the first child goes, I'd like to be a snake. I said, oh, that's interesting. You don't see that in a zoo every day. I said, that's good. What about you? A penguin. You what? Penguin. Okay. Third child. What would you like to be? Snail. Okay, so everyone's laughing at these animals, right? And I said, and the 4th child, this is the 4th child. I said, what's your name? My name's Henry. I said, hello, Henry. How old are you? I'm 6. And did you enjoy the show? It was awfully good. I said, thank you very much. And what animal would you like to be? I would like to be a South African gugu bird from the Tasmanian tribe. So I said, you what? I said, you what? And he went, I'd like to be the South African gugu bird from the Tasmanian tribe. Wonderful bird, wonderful bird. And I went, okay, no worries. Looked at the audience, did a few faces, as you do, and everyone starts laughing. Anyway, Old MacDonald had a farm. Yeah, and on farm he had a snake. Then the next one, penguin. All this business with his feet and whatever. Okay, 3rd child, snail. Like this one. I thought, okay, that's very funny. So then I've gone up to this child, right? Are you ready for this, Henry? Yes, I am. Very, very ready. Okay. So, Old MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm, he had a South African gugu bird from the Tasmanian tribe. E-I-E-I-O. With a... And then he paused. Everyone was laughing, thinking, obviously he's not going to do anything. And he just went... Whoop, 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 whoop. And he did the sound. And I'm telling you, Matt, not only did he screw me up and upstage me, he nailed it with the audience, and that was it. I mean, you couldn't do better than that. So that was the best one I'd ever had. What a child. And the worst one actually walked on stage, and it wasn't even with me, it was with Bobby Davro. Stupid, but he asked her a question, said, where's your mum and dad today? And they said, oh no, she's not there, they're dead. and he should have stopped there. And he went, oh, how did they die? And then went into it. Yeah, and that's when he got done for it. So that's why from the day he did that, God bless you, Bobby, from the day he did that, we all changed our routine to, who's brought you here today? Not, what did Mummy Daddy bring you? You can't change. You can't do that anymore. Who brought you here today? Which is very apt nowadays, because not every child has a mummy and daddy, and not every child has a mummy and mummy or a daddy and daddy. So it has to change.
Have you found pantomimes evolved over the years?
Absolutely. You must have seen them over the years.
Oh, yes, but I'm asking you as a pro. You know, you're the one that's dealing with scripts and different types of scripts. And
yes, absolutely.
And
well, the princess has got... Well, the prince, being a woman, gone. Because children were shouting, if you don't mind me saying so, lesbian. They were shouting, lesbian, can't kiss, lesbian. Well, of course. You can't. No, that's ridiculous. We need to think about that. At the time, it was frowned upon. Now, 5 years later... I guarantee you the prince will be a princess again. So a princess will fall in love with a princess. Because we have to go with the times to a certain degree. There will be fairy godmothers and there will be father godfathers. Not father, sorry, what was the other one they said? Fairy godfathers. There will be kings that will be non-binary. There will be buttons will be played by females, not just males anymore. So it will change. So Cinderella's best friend won't be a boy, it'll be a girl. So it will change and it will evolve dramatically. I don't know how they're going to evolve the Ugly Sisters, because that's quite a traditional role that is predominantly played by men. So unless the woman's gravely ugly, it's unfair to give her that role, isn't it?
You should never call a lady ugly, should you?
No, never. But when you look at two uglies on the stage, that's what they call them, uglies. So now if a woman's playing an ugly role, what do we call her?
They're the wicked stepsisters, aren't they? Sometimes.
Well, it was the same with the dwarfs. You can't call them dwarfs anymore. You call them little people. But it's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So the evolving of what we can and can't say is ridiculous. And if you speak to Warwick Davis, he thinks it's an absolutely ridiculous statement to make that we can't say dwarfs, because we can. So it is hard. Yes, uglies, dwarfs, all these words. Some pantomimes are getting rid, some aren't. I don't know where we go with that, I'll be honest. But I do know we have to evolve. Because children expect it.
What about audiences? Do you find they are laughing at different things from 10 years ago?
Nope. I think they're still laughing at the same things. I think most comics will always bring the same jokes, but they'll update them with different ideas. But funny's funny, to be honest with you, Hayden. Funny's funny. If something's funny, it'll be funny. It doesn't matter what you say or do. If you put them in a costume character like Bobby Davro does with the kangaroo, or I did with the frog, or another guy playing the back end of a cow or a horse, it's funny. If things go wrong, it's funny. It's basically your carry-on. Your carry-on meets Freddie Starr, meets all those comics over the years that did stand-up but used props. Tommy Cooper. You watch Tommy Cooper these days, you still laugh. You look at Walker and Wise, you still laugh. These were the guys that constantly made you laugh. And their humour is in Panto. It is to a certain degree in Panto. Look at Abbott and Costello. Who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on first. That's still happening today. Still happening today, because it's a clever routine. But I've seen that evolve to short sleeve shirts and other stuff. So things do evolve. But I think the tradition of pantomime should never, ever be hurt, I think is a good word. I think we should continue to take children to a magical place where there's humour for the adults, magic for the children, and good old traditional entertainment for families. And that's what it's always, I find pantomime always to be about.
Do you get the Panto blues?
No. Never have. Because I walk away from a pantomime going, right, what are we doing next year? I've never... And if someone didn't book me for pantomime, then I would go and see pantomime. So I'd keep myself amused with it. I adore pantomime, but do I get the blues? No. The best panto that I'd done, or the best human being I'd ever worked with, was Dame Edna Everage. Best human being I'd ever worked with. I did 87 shows with that person. And every night, as I finished 12 Days of Christmas, I walk off stage, 87 different words to say that I was amazing. You come up with 87 different words. That woman, sat there and went, spectacular, fantastic, brilliant, goodness me, special. I mean, I can't even come up with 5. There you go. He did 87 of them every night. And I said to him one day, why do you sit here and watch it? He said, it's the best thing I've ever seen in my life, he said. 12 Days of Christmas.
Has he ever been to see, or has the character ever been to see the Australian ones yet?
No, because he doesn't live there.
Oh.
He lives in Monaco.
Oh.
Yes. So he came, he did his panto, and he left. And that was the last time. So the first and last time Dame Edna ever did it, and it was Dick Whittington. And it was at the Wimbledon Theatre. That's where it was.
Couldn't coax him out of...
No, they tried. They tried for the London Palladium. But they couldn't. And FFE at the time, which no longer exists, FFE had lined up major stars from Hollywood. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Eddie Murphy, Jim Carrey. All of them said they'd love to do panto at some point in their life. But there you go.
That's a story for another time, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I think the likes of Michael Harrison, Nick Thomas, and even Paul Hendy, I think these are the kind of guys that would be able to do that and bring some of these American stars, or big stars, not even American, but big Hollywood stars, because people want that magic. Bringing in the likes of Sylvester Stallone is probably a waste of time, because we know what he's renowned for, and he's not really a panto person. But you take someone like Jim Carrey or Eddie Murphy, well, they're animation, aren't they? So bringing them on stage to play characters, the Wicked Queen, Jim Carrey as the Wicked Queen. My goodness, can you imagine that? Al Pacino and Robert De Niro as the mayor and the Wicked Rat, or whatever it was. Can you imagine that happening? Oh, it'd be the most amazing thing, wouldn't it?
And it would fill up the papers as well with great stories about pantomime.
Totally. It'll give everyone, a real sense of pantomime around the world. Oh, what's Robert De Niro? Pantomime. You what? What's that? A lot of people in America still think pantomime is guys that mime on the streets with white gloves and a black outfit. They don't know what it is. It's insane.
7% of the listenership of the Panto podcast is in North America now for some reason.
Because Bonnie Lithgow's son, Chris Lithgow, and Simon Lithgow are running now 4 pantomimes in LA and surrounding states. So they're doing pantomime now, and people are getting the idea of it, and that is awesome to see that happening. I think Canada should adopt it, and I think South America should adopt it as well. They should do pantomime because, honestly, with the amount of stars they got there, incredible stars, can you imagine what the show would look like? It'd be, a winter spectacle. It'd be a massive thing for them. Loads.
Have you ever thought about playing Dame?
No. And the reason being, 1, I don't think I'm old enough, and 2, it doesn't appeal to me to dress up and play that role. I'd rather be the comic.
Because you are what you are, really, aren't you, when you walk on stage?
Correct, yeah. So I can't turn around. And say, "Oh, I want to be the prince." I mean, hello, look at this. I mean, what woman wants to what Cinderella wants to kiss this? No, seriously, she'd be like, "Seriously, what happened? I know there was Peter Andre, but have I got his fat brother? What's going on here? That kind of thing." So it's a sad concept that I can't be a prince. But the thing is, why would I want to be a prince? Why not just go with your strengths? Go with your strengths. And I mention it, but I'm mentioning it in the sense that it's just an example. But Robert De Niro playing the leading man in a heartthrob love story. You what? Ain't going to happen. He's a mafioso, man, and he's what he does. Everyone has to play to their strengths. Play to your strengths, and you will rise in this business. But obviously, don't stop yourself doing other stuff. But there are great comics out there, character comics, who play Dame 1,000,000,000 times better than I would. So why don't I just stick to what I'm good at and make it the best I can make it, and then complement the Dame and what they're doing. That's the way I see it, to be honest.
What's the excitement like then when you get the script and you're meeting the company for the first time for each new production?
The excitement of working with people is always a blessing, because you're hoping you've got the best cast in the world. I can only go by the example of last year, Robin Hood. I'd never worked with Diversity or Ashley Banjo. I have worked with Gina Murray before, who played the Spirit of the Forest. I'd never worked with Daniel Boyce or Jacqueline Noble. I'd never worked with any of the other, like Leanne, the princess. I hadn't worked with anyone else. And I walked on that stage. Walked into that room. And everyone's got the scripts in their hands. I got my script in my hand. We all met. We all said hello. And I just felt an energy. And the energy I felt was, this is going to be something else. This is going to be brilliant. And when we started doing it, and we started reading the script and everything, and everyone's giggling, whatever, when we then put it on its feet, there was an energy of, let's get this to be the best panto we can. And do you know what? I'm going to put my hands up and say, I've worked with everyone from Warwick Davis through to Dame Edna Everage. And I've got to say, Southend's Robin Hood and His Merry Men was one of the best I have ever done. Because there was so much love for making the show great. But here's another thing as well. Where have you seen a panto where the first half's 47 minutes and the second half's 46?
Never.
Ours was.
That's quick.
Not only is it quick, people thought they were sitting in a 2.5 hour show, because we crammed it with so much energy that they walked away going, was that only 47 minutes? Yeah. And that includes the song sheet, by the way. That includes the song sheet. 47. So sometimes it would go up to 51 because there'd be comedy going on and whatever, and I'd do something. But 47 to 48 minutes was the average pantomime run for our second half of the show, and 47 was the first half. It's the fastest thing I've ever done in my life. And yet, we would start at 5 o'clock, finish at 7:15, I'd be home at 8:30. I've never known anything like it. And we only did 3 weeks and sold out. It was kudos is best-selling show in the entire country. And we only found that out when Nick Thomas came and went, just to give you the heads up. And I went, you're joking. Nah. Best-selling pantomime in the country. And all thanks to, obviously, Ashley and his team. But the reputation of the show just went through the roof. And I'm so proud it did. Because you do loads of pantomimes and you work with a lot of people. And the reviewers are not always kind. And sometimes they have an ulterior motive because there's someone they don't like in the show. So they try and disrespect the show by saying something horrible about it, even though the show might have been spectacular. And I've gone to pantomime shows where I've seen them and they're spectacular and they've slated them. And I've gone, what are you on about? So you find out afterwards they've obviously got a beef with one of the stars and whatever and this and that, whatever, which I think is a terrible way of reviewing. But our show, in and out, absolutely fantastic. Loads of great reviews, great 5-star reviews from so many papers. But it was a joy to be in. Absolute joy to be in.
Does that then put the pressure on you for the next year coming up? And you think we've...
Well, I can announce it. I'm not doing Panto this year. I'm doing the Thursford Christmas Spectacular in Thursford, Norfolk. So it's 120 cast over 4 stages, 4 long stages. And I'm the only comic in the show. And I'm working with the likes of Cirque du Soleil, and the River Dance girls and a number of other people, and I'm basically doing stand-up comedy, and it's kicks off November the 3rd, finishes December the 23rd. I actually finish before Christmas Day, so it's the first time in my life I'm actually going to get Christmas Eve where I can get drunk and not wake up on Christmas Day and then Boxing Day going, oh God, I've got 2 shows. First time in my life. But I wanted to do it to give myself a break from pantomime, but also because they were so keen on me doing the Thursford Christmas Spectacular that Steve Hewlett did it last year, and he said, bro, come and do it this year. I said, right, I'll do it. So I'm doing it this year.
A fellow water rat.
Correct. And then back to pantomime in 2022. I've already been approached not to move anywhere else, but to come back to Southend. They've said, you've got to come back to South. Okay, fine. I'll come back to Southend. So we'll see what happens.
Do you like a southern audience then?
Yeah, they're my people. Essex. They're my people. Yeah, look, it's Kev on the stage. All right, babes. All right, babes. Sweetheart, I'm in the middle of a pantomime. Shut it. You said hello to me last year. All right, no, I'm sorry. Hello. So it's that kind of... But do you know what? Awesome. Love them. Love them all. But I tour all over the world, as you know. I tour all over the world, from Australia to the Middle East, to the European, to America. I'm going to America this year. Well, I'm kicking off my world tour in America this year. So I kick off in... Fresno, then I headline in Las Vegas for a week. I do my stand-up comedy show for a week, and then I fly to Australia. Then I got South Africa, all over the world, and different audiences, different kind of reactions. Sometimes good, sometimes mediocre. Once in a while, bad, depending on where you are, what you're doing. And those are not even my one-man shows. They're the corporate shows that a lot of comics hate doing because they turn up not paying, and they sit there, they get drunk, and then you're expected to perform to them, and they're expected to laugh when they just want to sleep or go away or get more drunk, so but every audience is different, and yeah, southern audiences, particularly Southend, for me, they're just awesome human beings there.
I know Southend very well.
Do you really?
being from Kent originally, so
well, there you go. Hold on a minute. You're the posh lot, aren't you?
No,
Kent, and looking frowning upon Southend as the
No.
Really?
Not at all.
Okay, cool.
Chatham. Oh.
Fair play. All right.
Chatham, as we like to say.
Chatham. Or what was it that comic said? Ian Irving said once. He said, hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. He said, I'm from a wonderful village in Essex called Basildon.
Do you love the localness, though, about pantomime as well?
I do. This year, the reason I took Panto in Southend last year was a simple equation. I got to be at home with my family. Because the year before, I was with the wonderful, gorgeous Sam Bailey, but I was in Leicester, and I didn't get home once, and I was there for 4 weeks. So the only time I got home was Christmas Eve, and I spent Christmas Day with the family, and then I went back up again. And I was there for 2 weeks before the Panto finished, and that's hard. So I wanted to be in Southend this year. Imagine we're a great company to work for. Imagine Pantomime's in Leicester. And this year, kudos, great pantomime to work for again. Two different styles, two different pantomimes, written differently. One is much more passionate about the story. The other one's much more passionate about the talent and the routines. Two different styles, but you adopt yourself. And you adapt what you can and can't do. So for me, there's nothing I can't do. I mean, even to the point where diversity got me to do a 360 flip, and then for 4 days I couldn't get out of bed. God bless him. And then I said to Ashley, "Here's the funny thing." I said, "Ash, my back's spasming up." I said, "My legs have gone funny." I said, "To be fair," I said, "I can't even touch my back properly." I said, "Since that 360 we did." And he went, "Yeah, it happens to me sometimes." Shut up. Shut up, you dance all your life. Yeah, it happens to me sometimes if I don't dance for a couple of months. Yeah, whatever. But a great human being.
So you're still being like that little sponge, just soaking
Everything. I try and take it. That's why I've started doing audience withs, like life stories, interviewing the likes of Paul Daniels. You know, the last big one I did was Charles Aznavour. And I got the last official interview before he passed away, and the stories he told me, I just juice it all up. And I said to him, "Why are you so successful?" And he said, "Because I don't forget where my fame comes from. It comes from the people, not from my talent. It comes from the people. If they didn't want to see me, my talent means nothing to them." And I love pointers like that, you know. And Charles Aznavour was one of those great human beings that said that. Leslie Grantham, another one, before he passed away. You know, Leslie was a wonderful human being. And I said to him one day, we were doing a scene actually in pantomime together, and the scene was quite long. And Leslie went, "I've got a great idea." So what? He said, "Cut all this out." It was about 12 lines. I said, "What are we doing?" He said, "Cut it all out. I'll just walk up to you, I'll look at you, and I'll grunt, and just go, 'Do you need a mint?' Yeah, and just leave it at that." And we cut in the entire... Do you know what? It got bigger laughs than I've never known it. So I've learnt something from everyone I've ever worked with. Warwick Davis was an incredible director. The things I learnt from that man. Whew, just insane. Insane. The man he's a walking encyclopedia for how people should be directed in pantomime. And if you haven't interviewed him, please, God, get him on your Panto podcast, because he is insanely brilliant. And he's also the face of British Pantomime Academy.
I'll let you pass on my details.
I'll do that. Yeah,
thanks,
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah, I'll do that.
You ever thought about writing Panto?
Not necessarily, no, because I go with my strengths. So for me, I'd rather produce and star in a pantomime than write a pantomime, and I'm happy to direct it as well. But if I'm going to direct and produce a pantomime, I won't be in it, because you can't do too many things at once, because it spoils particularly your style of performing. So the local theatre in Hoddesdon here, we are approaching them in the hope that one day we'll get the chance to do a pantomime for them and produce a pantomime for them. And if I did one, I would make it very, very funny, because John Conway from Kudos always said a successful pantomime is a funny pantomime. Simple as that.
And I can see by all the books of comedians.
Oh yeah, I've read them all. And actually, the one behind you, that entire bookshelf, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiers of books, and everyone from Michael Palin through to Lee Evans, through to obviously, you got Barry Humphries there as well, Russell Brand and all them lot. But then if you look down, you got John Cleese and everyone else. Most of those books, if not all, have been signed by the actual stars themselves, because I've worked with each and every one of them at some point in my life. So because I do that, and I think I didn't get it. Peter Falk is my hero. I'm by the way, I'm going to announce it now on Panto Podcast. I will be paying the life of Peter Falk one day. Columbo, he's my hero, and a friend of mine called Chris Caress, great hypnotist, said to me, "When's your birthday?" I said, blah blah blah. He said, "Do you know what I've done?" He said, "I missed your birthday." I said, "I know you did." And he said, "But you're in South Africa right now, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." I've got a present for you. I said, "Have you?" He said, "Yeah." "Shall I send it to South Africa?" I said, "No, leave it home. Send it to my house." I said, "Don't send it here because he might not get here." He said, "All right." And 4 days later, I got the news that Columbo had died, Peter Falk. 80s. He was in his 80s. And I was devastated because I loved him. I love Columbo. It was one of my favourite TV shows of all time. And then my wife calls me about 2 weeks later. She goes, I've just had a package come through for you from Chris Caress. I said, yeah, open it. What is it? She opens it up. It's the last official autograph from Peter Falk.
Oh, brilliant.
Made out to me saying best wishes. I mean, you can't get better than that. And I've got it, and I think I've got it somewhere over there. So I'll show you later.
Well, this leads me on to my very last question.
Go.
Your dream pantomime cast. You can be in it. You can be sitting in the stalls watching it. You can choose the theatre. And your cast can be alive or dead.
Oh, that's interesting. My dream cast would be to do a pantomime of all the pantomime mashups. Right, I've had a dream of doing that. So what I wanted to do was an arena tour where only the comic character, which would be Buttons, goes through, because it's the most famous comic out of all of them. I mean, you got Wishy Washy, Muddles, Idle Jack, Silly Billy, and all them lot. But Buttons was the most famous, and I would get him going through an adventure, meeting the likes of Snow White, Cinderella, but then everyone would turn up to the ball. Snow White would be there, Jasmine would be there, everyone would be there. You know, you'd get all the, and it's obviously Cinderella's ball, and the prince would be the prince, but there were the other princes there, you know, and the Wicked Queen would be, you'd get a couple of different ones. So you'd get the Wicked Queen of the North and the South and this, so you'd add a little bit of Wizard of Oz in there, and this and that, whatever, and then you'd have the baddies and the good, but it would be incorporated. And if I had a cast like that, it would be a mashup of the entire pantomime world. And if I had that, then you can imagine, right, I'm going to have everyone from Barry Humphries, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, to probably one of my all-time heroes, Paul Daniels, who I absolutely adored and loved. He would be amazing in the pantomime. I would have Babs in it, Barbara Windsor. And I would have probably some more younger, better known comics. I'd love to have Peter Kay in a pantomime, and Lee Evans as Tweedledum and Tweedledee. I'd love to do that. I'd love to get all these different characters in it. But my entire pantomime, if I have to be honest with you, would be set on making sure that the cast were predominantly funny bones. Okay? However, the princess, Jasmine, would be a girl that ends up falling in love with Buttons. So it would be from a different pantomime. The reason being, because I'd like to cast Kim Kardashian.
Of course.
Okay? And on that silence.
And you be Buttons, of course.
Well, I'll be Buttons, yeah, because I'm going to have to end up snogging her, innit? I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? I'm going to have to end up doing, you know, a bit of a snoggy. But yeah, Debbie McGee, I'd have her in pantomime. She's a sweetheart. But yeah, I mean, I've worked with so many wonderful human beings. And I'd have Warwick Davis, definitely, as the head of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Warwick Davis would be the dogs. I mean, he's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. He's a great human being as well. So I'd have all that in there, I think, definitely. Yeah. And Ricky Gervais. Not sure what character, but he'd have to be in it, wouldn't he? He'd have to be a sarcastic character in it. I don't know what.
18 plus, possibly.
No. The challenge is he's got to be clean.
That is a challenge.
Yeah, challenge. It's got to be clean. And it's got to be pure clean, actually. The whole thing's got to be really clean.
Do you not like adult panto, then?
Love it. But you don't spoil the magic of children. You never, ever spoil the magic of children. Even the word she, like this one, or yeah, rubbish. For me, rubbish. Because you don't want children learning that. It's a family pantomime. So bring the magic. The children, it's their first ever experience of a theatre. Bring them to see magic. Magic. They'll walk away from that and they'll be dreaming for days on end, wanting to be the princess or prince. But you add one S word in, or F word in, or whatever, well, you spoiled it for them, haven't you? Because then they're going to go, oh, I'm a prince, but I can also say the F word. No, you can't. You're only 7. Shut up. Do you know what I mean?
Does it annoy you, though, when you do see that in other pantos?
Of course I do. I get furious at things like that because it's irresponsible. absolutely irresponsible for people to think that they can talk like that or do. Don't get me wrong. Julian Clary does it in the London Palladium, right? But it's an adult pantomime. I don't think children go to that. And if they do go to that, I think it's a really sad affair. But Julian Clary does what he does on stage. But it's Julian Clary. We know it's Julian Clary. He's not going to come out doing children's entertainment, is he? So, you know, and I've worked with Julian twice. Wonderful human being. But I attracted the children. He attracted the adults. That's why our pantomime Cinderella worked. You know, walking on stage. Hello, boys and girls. How you getting on? Buttons. He walks on. Hello, boys and girls. I do like a warm hand on my entrance. Really? All right. Well, the children are not going to get it, are they? But the adults all laugh. So that's how it works with his and my comedy. So I think, yeah, absolutely. There is, if a pantomime is set for adults, then you set it for adults. But if it's for children, keep the magic.
One last question.
Go on.
Did Mum and Dad ever get to see you in Panto?
Yes. Originally, Mum and Dad saw me in Panto, Nottingham, when I first did my pantomime. And my mum and dad they're very old-fashioned and they're very foreign. And when I say foreign, what I mean by that is not the fact that they're foreigners, it's because their traditions and their culture make them foreign. So when they come to see a pantomime, because this is something they were never ever brought up with, when they come and see a pantomime, they watch it and they go, oh, very good, nice. It's good, you laugh, you're being stupid, and you know, and you run around with the frog. Why you frog? I said, because I drank the vessel with the pestle, and the pistol with the pestle. What's the vessel with? What's this? Shut up! And then you do that, and you know why you get kicked by Linda. I said, I get kicked in the groin by Linda Lasardi because it's part of the routine. Why you do this? Why don't you just be nice to each other? And Mum, this is a pantomime. I don't understand pantomime, but bravo, you did well. Come on, hadi bye-bye, goodbye. And that's it. So they never got it. And they came most shows and they would never compliment me because they felt others needed to do it and they didn't need to do it. So people go, oh my God, you're amazing. Oh my God, I loved you. Can I have your autograph? This and that, whatever. Mama got, bravo. We see you at home. Bye-bye. Okay, fine. That's how it's always been in my family.
Well, Kev, thanks so much for taking part in the Panto podcast.
No, I want to tell the podcast people now that you came with this lovely lady here to interview me, and Panto people, I forgot, and I got stuck in a meeting and I totally forgot about this. And when I found out that poor Hayden was sitting in my office with a cup of tea and waiting for me, I jumped on a train from London and I got here within an hour and 23 minutes, I believe it was. And he was here still with a smile on his face. And I just want to tell all the Panto people out there, if a man can sit here and still smile after an hour and a half of waiting for my ugly butt to get into this office, then as far as I'm concerned, that is a man we all need to listen to and adore and support and definitely follow.
Thanks, mate.
God bless you, pal.